Welcome. In this video, I'm going to talk about 3 of the 5 instructional design principles addressed in the Cambridge Handbook of Multimedia Learning by Mayer and Fiorella. These principles will help the learner focus on essential information and avoid focusing on extraneous information, which often causes cognitive overload. After the brief discussion of these 3 principles, there will be a short 3-slide presentation on anxiety in the classroom. There will be 1 slide demonstrating each principle. The first principle is the redundancy principle. To maximize learning, aim to reduce redundancy. Redundancy occurs when the same information comes in through dual modalities, such as through the eyes and ears, or when a lesson is verbally and textually given at the same time. The information should either be read aloud or the text should be written on the screen for the students to read, but not both. Redundant information can distract the learner from important information as they try to read the text on the screen as it is read aloud. Again, to reduce cognitive overload, either read the text or write it for the students to read on their own. For example, in this first slide, there is no redundancy, and the redundancy principle is in play. However, in the second slide, this is a bad example of redundancy because the text is on the screen as well as it being read aloud at the same time. The second principle that I will discuss in this video is the signaling principle. The signaling principle helps the learner identify important information. A signal points out the important information, which allows the learner to quickly locate and focus on this information. This principle can lower cognitive overload by reducing the search for information. Signaling also helps with selecting phase in the processing process, which is when we select information that is important. Signaling can also help with organizing and integrating information as well. Not only can signaling be created through arrows, underlining, bold text, etc., it can be created through tone of voice as well. The third and final principle that I'm going to talk about in this video is the spatial contiguity principle. This principle deals with the location of labeling, which reduces the visual search for information. Labeling should be on the same slide and close to the information, not far away. Relevant information should be close together. Take a look at the 2 pictures of the world maps. The second one definitely has less visual search than the first one, so the second picture best represents the spatial contiguity principle. All of these principles are reinforced by the cognitive load theory and the cognitive theory of multimedia learning. In cognitive load theory, the amount of information we can process from our working memory into our long-term memory is our cognitive load. Effective instructional design through the use of these principles helps students recognize important information and ignore extraneous information, which allows them to use their cognitive capacity with their working memory to process this important information into long-term memory. When it comes to the cognitive theory of multimedia learning, these principles all aid in the effective selecting of words and pictures and then organizing them into auditorial and pictorial modes that are then integrated and stored in long-term memory. Now for my short presentation on anxiety in the classroom. Anxiety is prevalent in today's classrooms. 25% of students experience mild to moderate anxiety and nearly 6% experience severe anxiety, meaning that in a classroom of 30 students, around 7 or 8 will struggle with anxiety. Survey data shows that there is a steady increase of anxiety over the last century. There are 3 ways to identify anxiety: physical signs, behavioral signs, and psychological signs. Some physical signs could be headaches, increased heart rate, etc. Behavioral signs could be shyness, avoidance of activities or relationships, etc. And then, lastly, there are psychological signs, which can be irritability or restlessness. Since anxiety is so prevalent in the classroom, it is essential that teachers be aware of coping skills. Activities such as drawing, coloring, and listening are all common coping skills. There are several options shown here, but many more are available, and depending on the student, they may or may not be beneficial. Please take a look at these pictures along with their label. These pictures can help a student know what to do when coping with anxiety. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you found it useful.